The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show, slightly abbreviated bonus show today because we have a lot to do to get the new crowdfunding fundraiser launched by tomorrow. So we're going to have a slightly abbreviated bonus show today. A couple very interesting stories I want to discuss. Number one, Tyson Foods is this major meat company. They have launched a $150 million venture capital fund to explore meat alternatives. This includes plant-based meat substitutes. This includes other types of meatless meats, and this includes alternatives altogether that are not even meant to replicate meat, but just be other things. I think that this is interesting on a number of levels. Number one, we've talked about the lack of environmental sustainability of huge levels of meat consumption. If everybody went to the Mediterranean diet with small portions of meat a few times a week, we would be in a drastically different scenario than if we had much of the world eating meat 2 or 3, even 3 times a day. I know some people who have meat 3 meals a day. They will have bacon or sausage with their breakfast. They will have some kind of meat at lunch, oftentimes sandwich meat, chicken sandwiches, turkey, roast beef, whatever. And then they will have some kind of meat entree at dinner. It could be anything from a roast to who knows what else. That is a lot of meat, and that is clearly not environmentally sustainable. So, number one, it's interesting because a company that depends so much on meat for profit is exploring alternatives. Number two, it's interesting because it's seen now increasingly as potentially profitable to go with some of these faux meats. And we've talked about this off and on for years, Pat. The lab-grown meat, which is basically replica meat. It's genetically indistinguishable from actual animal meat, but it was never part of an animal. It was grown in a lab. And meat alternatives like lentil-based protein, vegetable protein, etc. The fact that Tyson is investing $150 million in that also means that they are seeing the potential profitability of some of these alternatives.
Yeah, it's a good move, and they realize clearly that they're going to have to move on at some point, and the environmental impacts will be much less, which is good.
Yep.
To some people, the ethical consequences of eating meat will be eliminated in some respects.
Yep.
But there's still going to be health concerns from this lab-grown meat because people are still going to be eating a lot of saturated fat, cholesterol. The makeup chemically will be the same.
Yes, although there's now quite a bit of doubt about whether diet cholesterol actually impacts blood cholesterol for most people, other than people who already have a very significant predisposition to high cholesterol. So that's actually been sort of called into question. Now, from an ethical perspective, we've talked to vegetarians about this. As a vegan, if you were told, here is something that resembles a piece of meat, it tastes like meat, it looks like meat, but no animals were killed in the creation of this meat. This was built up molecule by molecule in a laboratory. Is that something you would have ethical concerns with about eating?
I would have no ethical concerns about it, but given the fact that I haven't eaten meat in the past couple of years, I would actually probably be repulsed by it and still wouldn't want to go try it. There are some mock meats that are made out of things like soy and pea protein, which I will actually have from now and again. Yeah. But I'm just kind of repulsed by the whole idea.
There is now, I forget the name of the company, but it's a company that makes a mock chicken that apparently has the consistency of real chicken. And I've never tried it, but it's supposedly indistinguishable from real chicken. Is that something you've tried or would try?
Yeah, because, it's just a very easy meal to make. And there are many companies that put those out. There's Beyond Meat,
I think that's the one. Yeah.
Gardein, Morningstar, there's a bunch.
I think Beyond Meat is the one I'm talking about, where they have like a shredded faux chicken product that is apparently completely indistinguishable from the shredded chicken you might see in a Mexican burrito, for example.
They also have burgers that bleed. They're made out of beet juice, and when you bite into them, they actually bleed. And a lot of people who normally eat meat have just been completely fooled by this, don't realize they're eating a mock meat.
That's interesting. Yeah. I might be curious about trying that. Big news from the world of women's reproductive health, where there is new hope for infertile women. Scientists have found that a common cancer drug triggers the development of new eggs in some infertile women. This was thought to be impossible. This is a discovery that some scientists are calling astonishing. The University of Edinburgh proved that it's possible to reverse the clock and coax ovaries back into a prepubescent state where they begin to produce new eggs. And this is all with a drug typically used for treating Hodgkin's lymphoma, a chemotherapy drug, and with another drug combination called ABVD, and that this has triggered results in women who were actually being treated for Hodgkin's lymphoma and were infertile and then started producing eggs again. So the speculation is that the shock to the body of chemotherapy might trigger stem cells in the ovaries to start producing new follicles, which are the hair-like structures that each produce a single egg, and that is the mechanism through which this would work. This is still very, very early, and I know we've talked about how reporting on science is usually hyperbolic and it will exaggerate the potential of some of these discoveries. But this has already happened, and it is very, very interesting and could be a major new development.
Yeah, it's always fascinating, too, when scientific breakthroughs come out of something that's completely unrelated to the subject, and this is one of those cases.
Because of how big pharma works, that's actually not even that rare. It's always unusual when we hear about it. Well, we created this thing for something else, and then we figured out, hey, it can treat this completely unrelated thing. I believe that Viagra was actually figured out accidentally. I don't remember exactly what Viagra was initially developed for. The story, I just sort of thought of it now. The story escapes me, but it's also one of those things where I believe it was created for, it may have, now I'm confused. I know that it can be used for altitude sickness or something like that, but I think that may be an off-label use of Viagra, not its initial design purpose, but there's some story behind it.
The birth control pill was actually invented in my hometown, and again, I can't remember what the original reasoning for it was, but it was for something else, intended for something else, and people discovered, hey, this actually does something quite useful.
When there's profit to be made, you'll see what that pill you've come up with can treat, and whatever it is that it can treat, you'll say, that's exactly what it's for. We know how the profit motive has led to odd, but not always negative consequences as far as that goes. Okay, every once in a while, I will get emails from viewers who say, David, check out this article. Here is the kind of water container that you should be using now for health purposes. And I actually know very, very little about this. This is something that former producer Lewis was very much into. He always had strong opinions about it. And I don't know what the right choice is now. So when people travel, and I plan to start doing this, especially after the fainting on the plane incident, which may well have been because of dehydration, I want to start carrying water with me whenever I travel to avoid getting dehydrated. But what's the right container for water? There are metal containers, which I believe are not concerns when it comes to health, but give water a very metallic taste. So that may be less than ideal. There are all sorts of different plastic containers for water, Nalgene, etc. And I honestly have no idea which ones supposedly do leach plastic or related chemicals into the water and which ones don't. There's obviously glass containers, but those aren't the easiest to travel with, and glass can break, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm opening it to the audience, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Pat. Is there a consensus on what the most convenient and safe option for carrying around water now is? Again, because I don't want to just be buying bottled water after bottled water wherever I go.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not as informed or passionate about this issue as Lewis was, the prior producer. Yeah, we're going to have to just ask the audience on this one.
Yeah, I totally sympathize with even if the metal containers are safe, when I've tried them, the water does taste metallic and there's a very weird smell there. So I think I'm moving against that. But let me know. I think at home I have, well, number one, you want to actually put on camera that cup that you have, Pat? Because I have one of those. And that's not super convenient for travel. But again, I have no clue what type of plastic that is. I have no clue whether that thing is safe or it isn't safe. Where did you get that, by the way? I think I got mine like as a giveaway somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not even mine.
Oh, it's not yours? Okay. No. You found it outside, didn't you? Don't answer that. Somebody could be listening. So anyway, let me know, what does current science say about what kind of water container people should be carrying around? I will take the advice of the audience and get myself one before my next trip. All right, shorter bonus show today because we are launching the David Pakman Show fundraiser very, very soon. We will have news about that for you, I would guess, within the next 24 to 36 hours.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.